He goes, skills.
Well, as we all know, the economy is not doing as well as the mainstream media and the government says it is. They're always doing doublespeak, making bad things sound better than they are. But in this video, we're going to produce some facts that I hope everybody knows and pays attention to. On March 11th, what's it called?
The Emergency Bank Lending Program is to expire.
It's what's after the 2023 banking crisis. If anybody didn't know, that's when the banks were going belly up, Silicon Valley Bank, Stupid Valley Bank. And they made this bailout, essentially, and that's ending in March 11th. Why does this matter? Well, it's going to affect everybody. And I'm not saying they won't do something else to prop us up, but in the short term, we're looking at higher interest rates. A mortgage right now is like 7%. Mm-hmm. So, and that's not even the big one. The big one is the commercial real estate problem.
Yeah, especially when you have variable rate interest.
Stacy's not big on small fires. She just kept putting more wood on it.
Hey, I like my fires. Leave me alone. Yeah. Check out my awesome fire pit. Wood. Chris actually, hey, I help you split that wood.
Yes, you do.
Check out my fire pit. Chris actually made that for me on his plasma table. Okay, so I was asking Chris, I said, why is this important? If you guys have seen several of the news that have come out lately, March the 11th, there's several videos out there that are saying emergency bank lending program is set to expire. Oh my goodness, there's a big hype about it. So I started doing some research. I'm like, why is this important? Because we have the Federal Reserve bails out banks every time you turn around. Matter of fact is, that is the #1 classic excuse when you read this book, is there's going to be chaos, financial demise, economic disaster, all this kind of stuff, and they bail out bank after bank after bank throughout the history. This seems to be interesting is because they were trying to secure the deposits. So they were trying to make all the people feel safe, that you said, oh, don't worry about it. Your money is going to be available. And they were giving these banks this money, which they'll probably never repay back, at super low interest rates, which they will probably never repay back, as I already mentioned. Now that's going to end. Now, they still, from what I understand, will be able to get some of these loans, but it's going to be a higher interest rate, which is going to trickle down to the consumer. And I think that's the takeaway. It's going to take, borrowers are going to, it's going to deter people from borrowing. Keep going. I mean,
well, you mentioned chaos, and I was looking through the news a while ago, and Kevin O'Leary, you know, the Shark Tank guy, he was saying regional banks that have large portfolios, large portions, up to 40% of their portfolios are in commercial real estate. And this is where I want to warn people: if you take it upon yourself to, you know, look after for you and your family, and go to the bank and ask them, just, hey, how much is allocated to commercial real estate? You don't want to be involved with that. As March 11th, this could be where the bigger banks start snatching and grabbing the little banks that are failing, because they're allocated to a bunch of empty buildings. People are working from home. They're not, you know, their commercial real estate's in a real bind. And I've actually got a list of commercial real estate that I plan on shorting on the way down, because, and actually BlackRock is one of them, but I'll have to make another video about that anyway. But mortgages on commercial properties will need to refinance at much higher interest rates. This is going to burn them up.
Even if they can get the refinance.
And they can't afford it. They can't. They're in the red now.
Yep.
This is where it's going to trickle down to us, you know, and it's going to hurt small businesses. They're not going to be able to get loans. It will hurt the creation of money. But after that is when the money printer goes burr, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But keep going.
Well, so not only addition do we have that, I just want to go back in March of 2020. At that point, you guys, and you may know this, you may not, but did you know the bank is required to keep 0 of your deposits? That means if you go to the bank right now and you say, hey, I would like my money, they are required to keep 0 of that deposit you made the next day. They turn around and lend it out. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. It's always been the law. They had to keep 10%, then 5%, then 2%. Well, literally, as of March 26, 2020, they required to keep 0. Keep that in the back of your mind. Just always pay attention to that. On top of that, we have stress tests for the banks every March of every year. We have stress tests coming up. And they're already talking about how that the commercial portion of these banking sectors, it's going to really be a big deal because it's a really liability on the books of most of these banks. And I've read this book, and it's very interesting how they take these books and they try to make these books look like where it's actually an asset. And they fix the books. But when it comes down to it, the commercial lending is actually, well, Janet Yellen's even said, Janet Yellen, there's a video of her. Actually, Darren, thanks for turning me on to this. This is John Williams, actually did a really good video about this. And there's a video on his video where Yellen is pushing bigger banks. It seems like they're willing to bail out these bigger banks. However, the smaller banks, they're not so much willing to bail them out, and they just kind of let them go under. And if you read the history of the Savings and Loans Bank, it's very interesting. Once again, it's in this book, Jekyll Island, look it up. Their insurance ended in 1989. Now, we still have the FDIC, which controls the national banks, but the smaller banks, that insurance ended, and they grandfathered them under the larger banks. But they were actually called the bastard children of the Federal Reserve. They did not want them to be in existence. The whole thing, and it starts back in 1910, and I can give you a history because I've learned so much lately, but they did not want people borrowing outside the banks. They wanted the big banks to be in control, and that's where this all comes down to. They want the big banks to be in control. The Federal Reserve is part of the big bank system, and they're global. They're the pretty much the last resort, for even globally, that other countries come and borrow. And to look at the U.S. Treasuries that they're trying to sell.
It reminds me of the government of Oceania from the 1984.
Yeah, the book.
They instituted a centralized currency system with no private banking. All economic activity and financial transactions were controlled by the party's Ministry of Plenty. So ordinary citizens would not have to interact with independent banking institutions. When they do this, when they push all the little banks into the big banks, then that's where our social system is. That's how it'll all be. It's working out exactly the way they planned. In the meantime, just watch and pay attention to what's happening to around you, your bank. Where's your money at? The government's fix for this is going to be printing money. That is the number one pick. That's what they do. I've got a whole list of excuses from other countries. We might not have time to get into them. But they're going to say the same exact thing. We have to, because we got to pay our troops. We have to avoid a collapse. We've got to do this.
It's the same scenario every
Your
time.
Your dollar will buy less and less and less. The dollars will still be here. People say, oh, the dollar will always be here. Yeah, sure it will.
It'll be less.
It just won't buy as much. We're already experiencing it now. We're getting into higher interest rates where the dollar buys less inflation, and it's going to be a stagnant environment where nothing really does good. And still then, they're going to print more money. That's why we hedge our wealth with precious metals. Most of the countries and central banks, and they have a heavy allocation of precious metals. The wealthy do. A lot of people keep 10%. That's one way to hedge. It's one way to be your own bank. I have people all the time, hey, I sold my gold for this. That's great. That's being your own bank. You put it away and it's there. And we don't buy precious metals to get rich on.
No, we buy it as a way to hedge our wealth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and Stacy's a broker, but I always encourage everybody to get 3 bids. It's very important to keep everybody honest. But her number will be in the description. It's 318-564-5823. But keep going. I've got a...
Yeah, no, I am. I'm a broker with Miles Franklin, and I love what I do, and I believe in what I do, or I would not sell precious metals. And when you guys call me, you know, sometime I've talked you out of buying it. I will never try to force you to buy something, coerce you, encourage you. I will give you the facts, and you decide. But interestingly enough, a little bit of history, in 1944, when they did the Bretton Woods, that the main course of when they did the IMF and the World Bank and all that, you guys, they wanted to get rid of the gold exchange. And the reason why is the banks and the politicians said they could not manipulate it. They could not manipulate it. That gives you one more reason why you should own something like that, because they can't control it, they can't manipulate it. Now they do try to do the prices down.
It's the most manipulated thing.
But they didn't
ever.
like it, and that was their goal when they met in 1944. One more quick thing. So let's go back to the banks real quick. What we're in the situation we're in now. The U.S. Treasury, the bonds right now, you guys, 40% of everything that we take in right now is just going to interest. And I could go on for probably an hour with facts of different things. In 5 years, it's probably going to be 50%. That means we're not going to have any more funds for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, things like that, unless things change, which we all know will probably not happen. Right now, they're trying to sell enough bonds to borrow $860 billion just the first quarter of 2024. They're on sale right now. Matter of fact, it's tomorrow it comes out. You guys watch it. They're going to be talking about it, and they said watch the stock market to see how that affects. And on top of that, you've got all these rich people selling off these stocks. Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, his wife, Mark Zuckerberg, Jamie Dimon. Jamie Dimon has sold, after 2 decades, he's actually selling off stocks. Walmart, they're selling off their stocks. The family, they're selling off stocks. I can go on and on about the different people.
$170 billion. Warren Buffett is sitting on $170
he is.
billion. It's the largest cash pile he's ever had.
Yep. Why?
Jeff Bezos, $8.5 billion sold at Amazon. Zuckerberg, $500 million in Meta stock.
Yep.
Walton family, $4.5 billion in Walmart stock. What are they doing? I'm not telling you to sell your stocks. I am telling you to keep an eye on them. Just think about it. Just think about the people that seem to know in advance. Don't they always seem to know in advance? And they're actually selling their bags. They're selling their stock to other people that are glad to get it. As I'm seeing the stock market come over, it's, I forget what came out today. The bond auction was today. It fell so hard, it was unreal. It moved up here, all the way down, took the whole day, the whole daily range in 1 minute. And it's always, when they have news like that, they use it to push it one way or another. But the stock market is heading down. It is noticeable, and NVIDIA is propping the whole thing up. It's the most important stock to the world. When you start seeing NVIDIA go down, heaven forbid the Dow Jones start trading below the 200, you're going to start hearing people talk about recession. And later on, they're going to be talking about depression. So try to prepare early, because the prices of metals, the prices of things are going to go up in value. So, meaning it might go down in the short term in paper fiat currency that they're going to print too much of. So if you have something like that, you're not at their mercy. There's just a lot of people that are relying on a pension, a 401k.
They are.
And you were telling me earlier, in 10 years, a 401k is going to be gone.
Yeah, actually follow us on Twitter. Bloomberg just came out with an article where they did a study, and they said in 10 years they think the 401k will no longer exist. Think about that for a second. Wrap your head around that. And I want to just, a couple more things. I want to just give some facts and then go on to what you have next. We are globally, we're at $313 trillion in debt. That's globally. That means most countries cannot afford to pay the debt back. And matter of fact, as the IMF and the World Bank, they do transactions in dollars and they give these countries monies or whatever, knowing that they will never pay this money back. We're literally that much in debt. Now, I just want to talk about the U.S. for a minute. Average debt in the U.S. is over $100,000. Actually, it's $103,358. This includes mortgages, auto loans, students, credit cards. And as we've talked about in the past, you guys, credit cards are so extended. People have maxed out their credit cards. They've dipped into their savings. And this has really become an issue. But this is, you guys, this is where this is interesting. And this quotes, and it says, it was to terminate, this is the 1944, and to me this is when they really started taking the gold out of the picture. It didn't happen to us till 1971, but this is when they did the Bretton Woods. It said, and this is quote, it was to terminate the use of gold as the basis of international currency exchange and replace it with a quote, politically manipulated paper standard. In other words, It would allow the governments to escape the discipline of gold so they could create money out of nothing without paying the penalty of having their currencies drop in value on the world markets. You guys, that was back in 1944. We're in 2024 now. And we are just watching a playbook play out of where they've set this stuff, I think, and they're just gradually making this happen. They've put it in writing. I mean, we have the playbook. It's just, how do we protect ourselves?
Do your best. It's going to be a big deal to be out of debt.
I agree.
And you say, well, why is that? You know, we're going to war, we're this, that, and other. Well, you know, it's that whole stay solvent longer than the market can be irrational. Well, the market can stay irrational for a long time. And you're going to need a way to purchase, buy, do. You know, you're not going to be able to build businesses with a bad credit score. It's really important. And, you know, you were talking about the book and how it's all planned.
It is.
Well, there was people that came here that lost everything. They lost everything to move their whole family to the United States through blood and tears, and they came up with the Constitution, that old, outdated Constitution that we should not follow. Well, they had it perfect. They set it up right. And they're doing everything they possibly can. It started way back then to manipulate the market. And every day when I get up, I trade in the morning, and I've been doing this, and I have been watching it like a hawk. And New York, the New York kill zone from 8:30 till 11 has the biggest moves of any time of day during the stock market. You look at London, it's just a little move. You look at Asia, New York is just, it's where all the action happens. And I wonder, someday, is it going to be another country,
That's
time
going to
zone
affect that.
that affects everything? Who's going to manipulate it after us? Because when superpowers collide, there's usually a war. I mean, there's a bunch of black swans flying around. And after that war, there's a different superpower. And those people will get to take advantage of everything we've been taking advantage of for the last 50, 60 years. That's the scary part.
It is.
Life is not going to remain the same. It never does. It's always changing. But a lot of people can't see it. Most people I talk to, oh, you just buy a stock and hold it and it goes up forever, and that's all they've ever known.
That's been our history. That's what we've lived.
I heard Charlie Munger say the value investors are not going to do as well. It's going to be very hard to be a value investor like they were. Like,
because things have changed.
You know, what do you do? What
is.
do you do then? So, guys.
Well, I'll just tell you a couple things that I've been
ahead.
listening to. Yeah, on some of the, because I've been following some different guys on women, just people on YouTube, and doing some research. And by the way, follow us on Twitter, because when I find this information, we don't always get to share it here. We don't have enough time, but I try to post this information on our Twitter page. And they were saying, start a business. They said it's simple as it can be. They said that is a way to help you. They said have cash available. Precious metals was one of them. They said hard assets. Get your hand on hard assets. That were the four of the things that seems like was common in every single video I watched. I watched about 10 of them, of how to protect yourself. And that was the four common theme things that I came across on every single video. Now, they had different things.
Can we list a few?
That's what they said. Start a business. Have cash available. Get precious metals, and have hard assets. That was the four things about the 10 videos that I watched. That was the solid. It seemed like in every single video, that was the four things that they mentioned. Now, they mentioned a few others.
Try to think about things that will go up in value, things that are undervalued now. Silver's 90 to 1.
On gold, yes.
That's crazy.
It is.
The gold to silver ratio is 90 to 1. It hadn't
Yep.
been that way since the 70s.
Yep.
That's wild. And then you look at all the solar that we have to have. I can't remember how many grams go into a solar panel.
Yep.
Tesla's got thousands of acres they want to put solar panels on. They're going to have a lot of silver. There's no telling how much silver goes into those cars. But another one, go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm going to just mention something real quick. I just posted it on Twitter, another article. The government has just come out, and they want to do 55 million acres of government property, and they want to do solar panels. Now, you tell me how much silver that's going to cost. I actually just literally posted before we walked out here and made this video. I just posted it on our Twitter page. 55 million acres. And I listed the states. If you're in one of those states, go look it up, that they're going to use those lands and they're going to do it. And some of it's farmland that's rented out, and they're going to take it away from them. But they're going to, and how much silver is that going to take then?
There's no telling. All I know is historically, people would buy silver and then swap it for gold when it went to 30 to 1, 40 to 1. It's been to 14 to 1. Some people think it's going to go 1 to 1. You know, there's no telling, but there's, you know, that's an idea. Precious metals, okay, we got that. What about freedom seeds? The things you need to protect your family. I think those are going to go way up in value. I think it's going to be a lot like South Africa when they started having the riots and they were selling seeds at, I can't remember how much it was for a box. It was ridiculous.
They couldn't get
it was
their hands
10x
on them.
the price.
Yep.
But, you know, that's supply and demand. That is something that's reasonable right now. I know it's still kind of high, but just think about that. Bulk seeds. My buddy's in. I put him in the description. He's been doing it his whole life. Don't get paid for it. I got to be careful what I talk about too. But
Well,
that's a
text
good
me.
hedge, right?
Yeah, text me. His name's Luke, and if you want his information, text me and I'll give it to you.
Yeah, bulk seeds, bulk dispensers. Mainly seeds though, because that's going to be the thing. Dispensers are fun to buy. Seeds aren't as fun to buy, but when you know they're going to go up. You know, every time we have some kind of scare, they skyrocket and then they're out. It's just gone. You can't even get them. And that's when they start selling seeds for $1, $2, or $3 a piece. And you can get a box, a case. You can buy a case now. So just think through that. I know I'm happy with what I've purchased and put away. And the closer we get to the Thunderdome, the less I'm excited about selling it at all. I don't really want to even think about it. So that just tells me I need to get a little more so I can, you know, have something to barter with. Food. Guys, food is, that should be on everybody's list. People that aren't preppers should just buy it because you can beat the stock market. I mean, it's going to go crazy. Tools. Should we keep going with hard things to buy? Because I've got a lot of ideas.
Let's maybe do that for the next video because it's getting kind of dark. I hope they can even still see us at this point.
Okay, well, those are some really good ideas. And please put in the comments other things that you can think of. And I'll put a little nugget on the end of this video of something I've been watching like a hawk, and that's natural gas. Natural gas was $1.60 a thousand last week. And I was watching, thinking, I got to buy it. Well, it's really volatile. And it jumped up to $1.80. It's too volatile to buy the commodity and hang on to it. It's real expensive and it's manipulated. So think about an ETF. I'm not telling you to buy anything, but there's a couple of ETFs. Boyle's one, and United States gas, natural gas is one. Check it out because it should really go ballistic in the future. I don't know when. Don't ever buy anything that a YouTuber tells you to do, but I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm just saying take a look at it. I think there's some real action that's going to happen. So, all right, guys, have an awesome day. We'll see you in the next one. Later.